Hey, well, the title of the message today is My Secret Life. And I want to talk today about my secret life. I want to talk today about your secret life. And you know, this message was really came together when I just read like a little title, The Secret Life of Us. And it just spoke to me. And it started spinning in my head, and then I was driving. I'm leading the ICF College and the interns, and I was driving the car to the interns' lunch every Wednesday. We eat together, and sometimes I just share something from my heart. So on the way there, I kept thinking about it, and when I arrived there, I started sharing my first thoughts about that secret life and the power of the secret life with God. And so today, you get kind of like the evolving message. And I believe in a year it will be even more involved. But just so far, I'm going to talk about, and I believe it's a message that it will inspire us. And I ask you to really open up your heart so that God can speak to you today. You know, I have a secret life. One of the secret life is obviously after this message not anymore so secret. But I love watching on YouTube really nerdy car videos. Like nerdy, like for example, like a guy who just takes looks at weird cars and explains them. And I actually like it. Marion sometimes she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, this is so boring. And so that's why I only do it by myself. Like nobody, like not with my small group, just me alone. Yesterday, first time my son Ben, he joined me. He loved this as well. So I have a second one now in the family. It's not anymore so secret, but you know, I just love it. And then there was one show, there's like a person in Dubai explaining all the craziest, hyper, super fast cars. And you know, I can never afford it, but I do know now stuff. Like for example, I do know now there is a new car company, RS, they produce like special cars and they make a new one. It's called S1. And it accelerates from 0 to 2.7 seconds in 100 kilometers per hour in 2.7 seconds. I mean, this is powerful. I mean, yeah. Thank me later for, now you know. You know, and it looks like 2 million. It only sells for $700,000. Only. I mean, come on. This is amazing. Yeah, anyway, Google it. You'll see. Anyway, I see you're not so excited as me, but this is my secret life. And my small group, we were on a weekend and we were waiting in the car park and talking about cars, as you do. And not really, but we did at that case. And suddenly I was sharing like some really good insight. And Joel, he's like, where do you know all that from? And I said, my secret life. So there you go, my secret life. The secret life is not always bad, you know. Often when you say like, what's your secret? You're like, you want to know, like it's like almost like scary. The secret doesn't need to be scary. It's just secret. It's not public. You know, you also say like, for example, like what's the secret behind Ronaldo? And that there are like big tales talk about how he as a kid, he was like the first on the field, the last on the field. And like there's a secret behind his success. You talk about what's the secret behind like Asterix and Obelix, because that's power, that's a secret drink. Or like you talk about like Delilah talked about like, all right, what's the secret behind Samson's his strength? So the secret doesn't need to be necessarily bad. It's just not known for everybody. And there is power in the secret life. There is power in it, you know. And if sometimes if you're watching successful people, I love looking behind like the scenes. Like, all right, whenever I hear like when they share like how they wake up, how their morning routine looks like, what kind of books they read. This is the interesting story because their secret life is interesting. Because there's a power in the stuff, not in what invisible, but what is unseen. You know, Jesus had a secret life. He actually had a big secret life. He also had a big public life. I know. But he had the big secret life. And I think it was the secret life that defined his public life. And I know in my life, you know, it's like, it's always a danger to live a bigger public life than a secret life, but that will not turn out well. And I want to talk today about the secret life with God. And let's look at the scripture in Luke chapter 5, verse 16. So Jesus had like the biggest success. He was like just healing somebody from leprosy. That was like the high life, and people wanted him, and he was super public. And then we read in verse 15, yet the news about him spread the more. So the crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of his sickness. And then verse 16, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. So he often withdrew, and I'm like, all right, I need to be alone with God. Not even with his disciples, alone. And I want to talk today about that secret life with God. I know for myself, I wouldn't be happy as a pastor if it wouldn't be for this secret life. And I'm not just talking about getting up in the morning and praying the Bible, like reading the Bible, praying. I'm talking about, I know my personal Jesus. Like I really know that place, just me and him. My defining moments in my life, they were just me and him. The defining moments where like my life took its turn, it was when I was just with Jesus, just me and nobody else. It's a secret life that defines my life. And I want to talk about it, and let's quickly look at that. Just some facts. So I was just going through the Bible. It's like in Luke chapter 4, we talk about that Jesus went to the secret life to prepare for an important assignment. So when he was like just before, after getting baptized, before going to public ministry, he would withdraw 40 days, to be alone, be tempted by the devil, be alone with God. After hard work to recharge, he withdrew. His disciple went out and came back and talked about all the success they had. And then Jesus said, now let's take some time alone with God. In his grief, we read that Jesus went to be alone with God. When he heard the news about John the Baptist being beheaded, we read that he withdrew to be alone with God before he made an important decision. When he was just when he had to choose his disciples, we read in the Bible that he withdrew to be alone with God. And in times of need, in Luke chapter 22, verse 39 and the following, we read about, before Jesus would go to the cross, he would go to the Garden of Gethsemane. And then he said, you disciples, you pray. I go alone, I'm alone with God. And I ask myself, why? But because there is some certain times we just can be alone with God. It's the only times we can deal with these situations. There's certain situations I know if I talk now, it will be bad. I need to be with God because there I can talk and it's okay. With my grief, with my frustration, with my anger, with my questions, I need to know the secret place. And I'll talk about three facts about the secret place. And you ask, all right, but didn't God call us into community? Didn't he call us into fellowship as a church? Why do you talk about now the secret life, withdrawing to be alone with God? It's both in plans of God. He created the church, he created community, he created human being for fellowship. But in the secret, he prepares us for the fellowship. It's the times alone he makes us ready to actually be friendly, It's that time. Because us alone, you're like, sometimes you should be glad that some people go to be alone with God before they come to you, Because otherwise, it wouldn't be so pleasant. All right, are you ready for 3 facts? Good? All right, 3 facts. First fact is the secret life is a mirror of reality. I have here a beautiful mirror. My secret life actually reflects reality the best. You might ask, why? but because, let's look at that. If I worship alone at home, I'm definitely not pretending anything, because if nobody watches me, why would I have to pretend anything? So if I'm worshiping at home, I'm really worshiping. If I'm worshiping in here, I can do all the moves. In my thoughts, I'm thinking about cars. I can, you know what I mean? But if at home in my secret place, if I'm there worshiping, I'm 100% worshiping. It would be a fool to pretend to worship when nobody's watching except God. It's the same with prayer. Your prayer life, check your prayer life when nobody's watching. That's your prayer life. You know, sometimes we love to betray a bigger picture of ourselves. But it's always really embarrassing if the life you project doesn't match up to the secret life. That's why it's important for me to look into my mirror and say, like, Dan, are you really preaching what you're living? Like, are you really living what you're preaching? Like, Dan, like, come on, Dan, like, do you actually really mean that? I have to look into the mirror. I have to check my secret life. You know those westerns? Do you know those westerns where like those streets and then like they have like these super nice facades of a building and then you look behind and it looks ugly? Let's not be people that the facade looks amazing, but behind it, it's ugliness. Let's rather be the ones that the facade might look a bit shady, but then you look a little bit close and you realize there is so much gold. It's much nicer when suddenly the good news comes behind you and like overtakes your reputation than you trying to live up to a reputation, but you're not living it. It's much nicer that way, isn't it? Do you get that concept of the secret life? My goal today is that you are so ready and so eager to go and spend that secret time with God. That's my goal of that message today for you. So it's a secret life that is the mirror of reality. Second point is the secret life always becomes visible at some point. It's not good news for some people, bad news for the others. But the secret life always will be visible at some time. We have a little veggie garden. Marianne and the girls do have it. I took a photo. Maybe we can have a look at it. Because we planted, well, not we, they planted, yeah, that's right. They planted seed. And that seed is already visible now after like a couple of weeks, right? Living in the secret life with God, spending that secret time with God, those secret conversations in the bathroom with God, those secret like discussions with Him while you're walking to work, those secret like blessing somebody, nobody watching, those secret giving somebody something and nobody sees it or even gives you applause for it. Those secret years of serving, they're like seeds and they will grow. They will be visible at some point. And you know, we are so focused and so consumed about like making sure that we are seen, that fruit is seen. But I wonder, are we as much focused in what we are sowing? Are we as much like committed to like as we're sowing? Because sometimes, even in church, I sometimes ask myself, am I seeing enough for the potential God gave me? Do people see the potential in me? You know what I mean? But then I get reminded and says, you know what, don't worry about that. Just making sure that you sow good seeds. Just making sure that you spend that secret time with God. Because you know what, it will be visible one day. And you much rather want to be like that way than being put on a platform and you can't live up to it. You know, I love studying the Bible. I lead the ICF College. I mean, I'm for studying the Bible. But you might have a degree in theology, but there comes somebody up. He's like only like a believer for 2 years. He like didn't study anything, but he is in the Word of God alone in the morning studying that, nobody sees it, and suddenly he starts talking. Well, maybe you give him, say like, all right, maybe can you share a thought in the briefing of the welcome team, and that person suddenly comes and opens the mouth, and you realize, whoa, there is so much wisdom coming out of the mouth. Where does that come from? The secret life with God. That's like, I love it. Like Dom Hobb, a good friend of mine. Like he knows so many Bible verses, he has so much insight. And I'm like, oh, he didn't study anything. You know, like good for studying, but he had his time with God in the Bible every day, many times. He goes and when he milks the cows, he's with God. He's not just like I'm not talking about the time with God is always there on your knees. It might be, but actually I'm talking about doing the everyday thing with God. With God. So, I love that like that. You know, we have Joshua in the Bible. Joshua in the Bible, there's one verse that I really love. So, before he was kind of the great leader, he was just a servant of Moses. He was just a servant. And you might wonder, why did God pick him to be the next leader after Moses? And Moses was an amazing leader. Why Joshua? I think the key is right here. The Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Then Moses would return to the camp, but his young aide, Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent. It's a very, very, very simple side note, but I think it shows something about Joshua. He knew that secret place with God. You know, there was no big spotlight probably on him at that point. When Moses left, you know, that tent is like the tent of the meeting of God, where God came with his whole presence. So like now we are the tent, but just back in those days, it was a special tent, and Moses would go in and meet with God face to face, and his servant would join him, and then Moses would go out again, and probably the whole focus was on Moses. But when the whole focus was on Moses, Joshua stayed there in the presence of God in the secret place. And I think it was back then it started shaping something in his relationship with God. I'm always astonished meeting people. I'm like, oh, come on, you have been in church for so long. What happened now? And then I'm like, realize they have never really discovered that secret place, really established that personal secret relationship with God, when there's no worship band, when there is nobody giving a message, when there's nobody explaining the Bible. It's just you and him. You know, I was so disappointed. There's one story that comes to my mind right now. I was actually youth pastor in my old church like 20 years ago. 20 years? Yes. Crazy. My goodness. And there were like two girls started a relationship with Jesus. And after 2 years, they just went away. And I asked myself, why? And they said, you know what? After a while, like we didn't have the resources anymore to do the worship band and, you know, and the same. And so like suddenly they had not any more nice worship. So they had not anymore somebody giving them the word. And I realized, shepherds, I didn't help them to establish a personal relationship, a secret relationship with God. What have I done? I regret that. The third thing is the secret life can be celebrated alone. You know, it's a powerful verse that sometimes is can be misunderstood, or it's like difficult to understand in nowadays, because nowadays everything is so public. We celebrate the public. But actually here Jesus is saying, and when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their full reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you for it. There is a concept we might have a little bit forgotten. I'm not talking about it's bad to pray in public, otherwise I would be in big trouble, you know. I'm not talking about it's bad to have prayer meeting with a lot of people. This is all great, and we read a lot of Bible verses about that. But there is one prayer that hopefully we never forget. It's the secret prayer. It's a secret place. Because it's a fundament, because it's the mirror, because it really shows like who we really are, what's truly our motivation. And there is a reward in it. And I suddenly realized like, we say like, if you haven't posted it, it hasn't happened. You know, like if you post it, then you can celebrate it. But I want to share a new concept with you guys. Why don't we just celebrate stuff if nobody has seen it? Why don't we start celebrating by ourselves if we serve and nobody like acknowledged it? Nobody praised us for it. When we start to praising, when we start to serving people, when we start to helping a neighbor, when we start to be generous to somebody and nobody saw it, let's celebrate it because God has seen it. How good is that concept? Like we are so consumed. I'm like, hey, am I seen enough? Am I praised enough? Am I acknowledged enough? And I'm like, God acknowledges you. There is reward in that. And I, for myself, I want to celebrate that reward again more. Don't you want to do that as well? There is a reward in it, in that secret life. Let's celebrate it. You know, it really will help us in church life. It will help us in life. It will help us to have the right attitude in so many things. I want to finish with one last point. And I think it's an important point for the day. And it's, you know, that secret life is open for anybody. It's open for anybody. You know, like that secret life where you find strength, where you find peace. It's like when, you know, like when I said like the secret life will one day will be visible. You know, it's like those fruits of the Spirit. When we work, when we live with Him, when we spend time with Him, He will be visible. All those things, they are open to us. It's like James Bond. Remember James Bond? He would go to his arsenal and like all the weapons and all the amazing tuned cars, and he would have access to all of them. We have access to all of them. And you know what? You have access to the secret place with God as much as anyone in that room. And that should be good news. Because if that secret life is the place of power, it's a place of strength, it's a place of wisdom, this should be like excite us. Let me read that Bible verse to you because it's amazing. Hebrew chapter 4 verse 16. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. He talks about the temple. So before Jesus died for our sins, they had like the temple in Israel where God would live. And that the high priest could go into the secret place, the most of holy, once a year. When Jesus died on the cross at Easter, at that moment the whole curtain tore apart and we have new access. Everyone has access. And from that verse it talks in Hebrew, says like, now because of that, of what has Jesus done for us, let us approach God's throne, His secret place, with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. I wonder if you know that secret place. I wonder if you realize that you need it. I hope you realize that you need it. We all need it, because what God is doing in our secret, He will make it public one day and bless people. And I pray that we become more and more people who who really gain our strength from there. Because when we know that place, we will always be people, like the Bible says, living water flows out of us. Peace flows out of us. Strength flows out of us. I don't want to be the people that are known like at home for putting big Christian posts up, big nice Christian like Bible verse on the floor, on the wall, or on the floor, whatever. I want to be the people that like, when you meet us, that we like, you know, these are the people that there's flowing life from them. There's flowing wisdom from them. There is flowing strength from them. There is flowing peace from them. There is flowing inspiration from them. They suddenly have knowledge. They suddenly have hope. They can deal with that difficult situation. I want that too. The good news is we have all access to that place. And you might be here now and you realize, you know what, maybe you're here and you realize I haven't really spent any time with God. Maybe you're brand new to God, brand new to faith. You heard about Him. Maybe you went to church but actually prayed. You never did. I want to invite you today to really go and tap into that secret place. The doors are wide open for you. And I want to tell you there is hope for you there. There is restoration for you there. In my time of trouble, I go to that place. If my time of victory, I go to that place. If my time of questions, I go to that place because I know I need that place as much as anybody else. You know, my 20 years with God, they're not going to help me in my next 20 years. It's my daily time with God that's going to help me for the daily day. It's the day, every day. And maybe some people in here, maybe you have already really, like you're all going with God. And you might ask hey, you're standing in front of difficult situations. Then let me just encourage you. Hey, let's go there to that secret place, like Jesus in His grief. Let's go there. Let's be people that have like a bigger secret life than a public life. Let's go there, because no matter how long we have been with Jesus, in that secret place, we are sons and daughters. There's no title in the secret place except sons and daughters. There's nothing to perform in the secret place. There's no mask to put on in the secret place. So let me invite you, no matter what kind of positions you're in, no matter what kind of difficult situation you're in, no matter what you're struggling right now, I invite you to come and say, all right, I'm gonna now really go there. And you know, it starts with an honest prayer. And we want to listen to a song now, talking about the place when we meet God and everything changes. And during that time, I want you just to invite you to honestly think about that. Honestly give it God, because the last thing from that message is to perform something, all right? It's the last thing I'm asking of you. All is like I'm asking, like, give God an honest answer. Maybe for the first time, make an honest prayer. And maybe it only says, God, I need you.